What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Run It Up podcast. I am your host, Najee Adams, and you know I got my guy with me today. We're running a quick little two-man. We are without Khalil, but I do have Justice Gregory here with me. How you doing, bro?
I'm swell. I forget that you live in New York, so like gang signs are like a real thing in your life. It's like I'm
Yeah, I
over
don't
here like
know
in
what you
Kentucky,
throwing
just
up. Yeah, I don't know what you throwing up. I'm throwing up peace signs, my brother. No, not over here. Um, yeah, how you been, bro?
swell, bro. I'm happy to be back. Glad we got to settle in.
Beautiful. The we've been trying to record this pod for at least 7 days, but we finally
hmm
found the time. I had to
hmm
cancel once, Justice had to cancel once, but hey, now we're back and we're better. Um, Today basically we are recording a podcast on our top 12 fantasy football wide receivers. And we're also talking some booms and some busts based on fantasy football ADP. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. I think last year we did it and it did pretty well on YouTube and everything. So we're back with another year of our top 12.
Wait,
Obviously
Naj,
there's
before we get started,
oh yes,
just
okay.
something I thought of. What is your fantasy team that you're most comfortable with right now? Like you're most confident in?
What do you mean? Like what team do I
What
have?
what, what roster do you have? Like, do you have like a dynasty league where you're like, man, I'm
I
really
do.
good in this league?
I
All
do. I
right,
have a dynasty league.
I want to hear it.
Okay, I have a dynasty league with my friends. Um,
Can I
it's
go
a
through mine first while you're pulling it up?
yeah, of course, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
this
This
kid
this,
just
this
wants to flaunt his fantasy football
no,
roster.
it's not that. It's not phenomenal. It's not phenomenal. I'm just really happy how this came together. I made a trade last week.
Mhm. Is
In this
this in
league.
the
This
league you're trying to trade with me in?
uh no, you're not in this one. This is the only
Oh,
league I
okay,
have that's not with you. This is the Campbellsville Dynasty League. So this is purely like Campbellsvillians.
gotcha.
Um, I made a trade last week where I traded Chris Olave and Trey McBride and 26 first
You better got
for
somebody elite.
Sam Laporta,
Okay,
um, Derrick Henry,
okay.
and a 25 first. And I
Are you
now
trying
have
to
four.
contend?
I'm trying to contend. I now have
Okay,
four 25 first round picks.
okay.
Um, but the roster rolls out as what's going to start on week 1 is Jordan Love, Devin
Mm-hmm.
Chan,
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Sam Laporta, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jason Sanders, and the Broncos defense.
What's your bench hand for?
Uh, Young, I got Justin Fields just in case.
You know how I
Um,
feel.
I
I
know Deneric Prince, Audric Esteem,
have him as well.
Jonathan Brooks,
Yeah.
Zamir White,
Mm-hmm.
Zach Charbonnet, Mike Williams, Greg Dortch, Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney, and Jonathan Mingo. And then I've got Drake May, Braylon Allen, and A.D. Mitchell that are stacked in my taxi squad right now.
And you have 425 first, you said?
I have 425 first, and I'm gonna smack running backs.
Okay.
I'm gonna
This running back class is apparently loaded.
Ollie Gordon is
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
is coming home to pop it,
yeah,
brother. I'm not
exactly.
gonna lie to you. So uh, I'm not gonna lie to you. And I got to snag Neighbors in my other league, so I don't have to like
Mhm.
because I really thought about taking him over Marv.
I adore
Uh,
Malik Nabers.
yeah, I think I have a crush.
Yeah.
But all right, talk to me. I want to hear it.
So preface mines is a 12 team tight end premium, super flex, no kicker, no defense. So straight
Ooh,
players. They're just straight
ooh.
players. And so uh I context this is we're going into the third year of the league. The
hmm
first year I lost in the championship. The second year I lost in the second round. And this season, I passed with finding a new QB2 because obviously in Superflex, quarterback super important because my QB2 was Justin Fields. And
Mm,
now he is no longer a starting quarterback.
mm,
So I didn't have a starting quarterback. I traded Marquise Brown for Daniel Jones on draft day. I traded Marquise Brown for Daniel Jones in a second on draft day because I needed a QB. And my wide receivers are pretty stacked. So I felt good about that. I then traded my 2027 first and Javon Baker for Deshaun Watson. So I also felt good about that. Now, before all of this happened, the day of our rookie draft, I traded for the number 4 overall pick in the draft thinking that I would get Jaden Daniels. Now, the way that the picks went, it was Caleb, Marv, The guy at 3 had 3 and 4. So I probably could have pushed for 3 and assured I got Jaden Daniels. But I'll be honest, I love Malik Nabers. So I was cool regardless. I was just hoping I got Jaden Daniels. I ended up having to trade Breece Hall for the 104, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Brian Robinson. It ended up being Malik Nabers. So I ended up trading Breece Hall for Malik Nabers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Brian Robinson. So that is how my offseason went. It was supposed to be Jaden Daniels, but I was fine with Malik Nabers. I did trade Breece Hall.
I trading Breece Hall. I traded. Okay, you'll remember this. This is in a dynasty league I had with you where I traded Breece Hall because I was contending and I ended up winning the championship that year, but Breece got hurt in his rookie year. But he was my RB1, and I traded him. Yeah, and I traded him for K-Dub so I could finish out my championship run.
I absolutely adored Breece Hall. I drafted him in the second round of our startup when he was a rookie, held him through the entire ACL, held him all last year, and he was fine last year, but obviously the Jets offense was putrid, so it was tough. And so this is what my team is currently going into year 3. Josh Allen, because I had the startup 101. So I took Josh Allen.
Okay.
My running backs are now David Montgomery and Raheem Mostert. So I'm hoping that those are my starters. I'm hoping that we can get some decent production weekly. My wide receivers have Jamar Chase, Malik Nabers, Stephon Diggs, Davante Adams, Christian Watson, JSN, and Chris Godwin. So I feel pretty stacked at wide receiver.
Yeah, no, you're solid. You got good depth out there. I'm interested to see how you decide who to start week to week. But
that's going to be right now. I'm starting Jamar, Nabers, Diggs, and Davante. I feel like week 1 that's what I'm safest with.
I'm starting Watson over Diggs week 1, bro.
And hey, wait till we get to down this thing. You know, we might talk about him today. And then my tight end is Travis Kelce. So obviously I'm trying to contend. And then my super flex QBs are Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, and Justin Fields. Now, obviously, I feel set at QB1 with Josh Allen. Between Fields, who should win the job eventually, Deshaun Watson, and Daniel Jones, I got it. Someone's got to give me weekly QB2 production. And that's all I'm hoping. At running back, I have Raheem Mostert and David Montgomery. And then on the bench, I have Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Brian Robinson. So, like, all guys that should be, like, decent mid-range RB2, high-range RB3s. And I'm hoping that my receivers and Josh Allen and Travis Kelce just carry me. So that is my team going into this year. That is the Dynasty League that I pour my blood, sweat, and tears into. And I am currently projected the 3rd most points in week 1. I am playing the guy that I traded Breece to, so I will have to play Breece week 1. Thankfully, it's against the Niners, so I'm hoping that they can lock that up. But he also has to play Malik Nabers week 1, so hey, it's a revenge game both ways.
Listen, so in the Camels League I told you about, we auction for our draft.
I remember. You're the only person I've ever done an auction draft.
I fully and wholesheartedly believe in auction drafts. If you want somebody, pay the price for them. I think you getting a random number, getting to pick it sucks. So redraft leagues, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. So anyways, prices were outrageous. They were bidding up everybody. It's like a ridiculous price. So we get to we're probably like 10 players into people getting picked. And I realized that I'm not going to spend what they're going to spend. I'm going to tank. So I decide to tank. I decide to splurge on 3 people. And I knew after the draft was over, I was going to trade those 3 people for as much draft capital as I could. So the 3 people were Travis Kelce, McCaffrey, and Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
I traded all of them and got 2 first-round picks in return last year. So I had 6 picks going into the last year's draft. I cashed in on 2 of those for A.J. Brown. And then I tanked. So I got Marv. I traded Hurts, James Robinson, and Justin Ross for Justin Fields and 2 first.
I'm doing that. I mean, I believe in Justin Fields, especially in fantasy. Like when he's playing, he's a top 10 quarterback. Like it's just
I traded Kelce for and and Hollywood Brown. They changed it from Marquise to Hollywood and Sleeper for DK and
Brown.
for DK and 2 first. Ended up trading DK. Uh, I traded DK and nope. I traded DK. I can't find it. Oh, for 2 firsts. So, and then McCaffrey. So it was just like I literally like as soon as we were 10 picks into the draft, I was like, okay, you all suck and are gonna spend $1 trillion on people. So I'm just gonna do what I can. And now I think I'm in position to win the league.
I
So
hopefully am in position too, bro. Because I want my plan. I don't have no first for like the next 5 years. Because like I'm quick to give up a first because I'm trying to win. Like I want to win. If you want a first 3 years from now, take it. I'm
yeah,
trying to win now. And so the plan is to win and then blow it up because someone's giving me 3 firsts for Josh Allen.
yeah.
So
I blew.
I'm
You remember the fantasy football dynasty league that I won? I blew
yeah.
it up after the first season.
Yeah. That's what I'm
I
saying.
blew it up.
I'm winning and blowing it up. That's the goal. Um So yeah, that's my favorite part about Dynasty, bro. It's like calling your shots, like
Yeah.
believing in players. Like I believe in Malik Nabers. I'm taking him with the 4th overall pick. I believe in Brees Hall too, but like I think that in Dynasty, like if you're playing long term, wide receivers end up having so much more value because 10
Mhm.
years from now, Malik Nabers will be 31 and still playing at a high level, and Brees Hall will be 34 and out of the league.
Off
So
his
like
third ACL
so,
injury,
so
probably.
like
So
I just think that wide receivers you invest in them in Dynasty. But yeah, there's our little Dynasty rant, our little fantasy rant. And before we get into our top 12 wide receivers, let's just go song of the week. I'll start us off because mine is pretty basic. It is Drake, Blue, Green, Red. I adore that song. His little 3-pack, 100 gigs, whatever he dropped. That is probably my favorite song on that. It's my favorite song in a while. I was running that when it came out. And so yeah, I know it's basic. I know it's Drake. But it is one of my favorite songs right now.
there you go. I've been singing this song for like the last 2 weeks in my head, and I was singing it when we turned the pot on today. So my song of the week is "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You" by Miss
Mm,
Lauryn Hill, the
that's
goat,
a
by the way,
throwback.
the goat.
That's a
So
throwback.
in my opinion, possibly the best album of all time. I just wish she had kept making music. The
Wow.
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a masterpiece.
I love that for you. What an old soul. I love when you have takes like that. It's amazing. Um, but yeah, those are our songs of the weeks. It'll be in the description. Uh, if I had to guess what Khalil's song of the week was, it would be some kind of moody, vibey, like singy song. And I can't think of an artist right now, but just listen to a song like that for Khalil. You feel me?
Oh,
Um,
I can tell you exactly what it would have been.
oh,
Hold
please
on.
do.
Um, I'll pick one for him. There's this R&B singer that me and him both like called Elmian,
Mm-hmm.
Or Elmine, and Khalil would have picked Slow Jam by him from his
And there we
live
have it.
album.
3 songs of the week. Beautiful. They'll all be in the description. And so yeah, we can dive into our top 12 fantasy football wide receivers. To preface it, we are doing PPR. So keep that point per reception, keep that in mind, and we'll start at 12. That's really the only thing I have to preface. I will say honorable mention guys who didn't make my top 12, but like we're on the cusp. For me, Marvin Harrison did not make it. Drake London did not make it. Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, and DJ Moore did not make it. But those are all guys that I do think will probably end up being top, not far off top 12. Um, so for me, if I'm starting it off, my wide receiver 12 is DK Metcalf. Um, I'm a Seahawks fan. I am biased. I will fully put that into admission. But I will say that we finally did get rid of the old regime in Seattle. Pete Carroll is no longer here. Shane Waldron is over in Chicago. Good luck. We hired Mike McDonald as our head coach, former Ravens defensive coordinator. But the big part is we hired Ryan Grubb as our offensive coordinator, the Washington offensive coordinator, who orchestrated one of the best offenses in all of the nation last year that went to a national championship with Michael Penix Jr., Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. They were nice. They were elite until they ran into Michigan. Um, Already in the preseason, I think we've seen a new Seahawks offense. We're utilizing pre-snap motion on 70% of our plays, which is second in the entire NFL to only Mike McDonald. Granted, I mean Mike McDaniel's Dolphins. Granted, it is a small sample size. It is the preseason, but I think
It is small.
you can see the goal here is that we are
Mhm.
trying to revitalize an
Mhm.
offense. I think the point of Ryan Grubb's offense is to find creative ways to get their wide receivers the ball, scheme them open, give them downfield shots to make plays. When you have a freak like DK Metcalf, like I think he's going to be able to utilize that. I don't want to say he's the same build as Rome, but like you saw what Rome did as the wide receiver one in that Washington offense, ended up being the 9th overall pick in the draft. Probably would have been the best receiver in the draft had he not ran up against two freaks in Marvin Harrison and
just
Malik
two
Nabers.
absolute freaking natures. Yeah.
So like we see how Rome produced in that. And I think he's going to use DK in that same role. They passed on 59% of their plays last year, and that was ninth in the nation. And they ranked second in passing yards and 13 in passing yards per attempt. Now, last season, DK finished as a wide receiver 21 in total points per game and wide receiver 23 in fantasy points per game. On a team with the fifth lowest ADOT in the entire NFL. Shane Waldron was horrible. I'm sorry. He's a horrible. Good luck, Chicago. But brother was throwing passes 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. And DK still found a way to be the top 21 wide receiver with basically no shots to be explosive. So I feel like we know his floor. He hasn't finished outside the top 24 in the last 3 seasons. And I think the Seahawks, I'm very high on the Seahawks offense, which makes me very high on DK Metcalf.
DK didn't make the cut for me. I think he didn't make the cut for 85% of the population. That's fine.
Yep. That's a hot take, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's fine. My number 12, and I think this is probably low for most people, is Davante Adams. No offense to Davante, but he's great. Great receiver. I don't trust Gardner Minshew. I don't trust the other weapons in that offense to be able to take attention away. I'm actually fading all Raider players in every draft. Like, Brock coming in may get some draft capital spent on him. I'm not doing it. Jacoby Myers, I'm not doing it. And Zamir White, if I need to, like if I end up going like wide receiver heavy first 3 rounds, sure, Zamir White may be able to jump on. Davante produces regardless, which is why he still made the top 12. But I don't trust Gardner, and I don't trust Aiden, and I just don't think there's enough around him to keep attention off of him. He'll have the volume alone. He'll get the targets. I just don't think it's going to be an efficient offense, and I think that takes a hit from where you would typically have Davante like wide receiver 8. He just drops 4 spots, wide receiver 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect segue because my 11th is Davante Adams. I think everything that you said is totally correct. I think wide receivers typically fall off a cliff in their age 32 season, and he turns 32 in December. So I think if he can beat the odds, right? Like, I think this is the last year that is possible for him to be a wide receiver 1. Like, he will not be in my top 12 next year. And so the reason that I'm taking him here is because he's finished top 15 in PPR in every season since 2015 that he's played 13 or more games, right? So I'm going off pure history, right? Like every year that he's played and been healthy, for the most part, he's been a top 15 guy. His PPR finishes as a Raider, wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 10. I don't like Gardner Minshew, but like I do like last season, he did lead Michael Pittman to a wide receiver 13 finish and pure hyper targeting him. 156 targets, not efficient, but like volume alone got Michael Pittman to wide receiver 13. And so like I think Davante Adams is a better talent than Michael Pittman. And so
but those O lines are so different, bro.
1,000%. Like he's not gonna have as clean a pocket or as good a looks to get him there. I also think like the target competition that he has in Las Vegas is way better than what they had in Indianapolis. Like I think Jacoby Myers is a very good wide receiver too. I think Zamir White, Dylan Laub, who they drafted, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, like those guys are all going to get touches. So I think that like they're going to have to spread the ball more, but I do think he's going to get volume. Like he had the I think this season, like they should be trailing a ton. Like I don't think the Raiders are a good team by any chance. And so like game script, they'll be passing the ball a lot. Last season, he was second in target share, second in target rate. Like he was just getting fed the ball. And so I think that like, even though they added Brock Bowers, you do like outside of Sam Laporta, tight ends typically take a little while to break out. If there ever was a guy to kind of break the mold, it is Brock Bowers. I think he's probably the best tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts. Granted, Kyle Pitts hasn't necessarily played out amazingly in the NFL, but like Brock Bowers was an amazing tight end prospect. Combine that with the fact that like last season, Davante Adams was number 1 overall in unrealized air yards. So like they were bombing it to him. It was just like not catchable. The targets weren't like it just wasn't able to be gotten. Like he had a high average depth of target. He just wasn't able to like complete the passes. I think we should still see a wide receiver one finish off volume alone. But if we don't, I wouldn't be shocked. And I think this is the last year that we could see him here.
Yeah, my 11 is DJ Moore. I think it's just time that we quit just assuming DJ's not like and DJ actually we're doing a boomer bust. DJ's getting drafted as wide receiver 23 right now.
That's pretty nuts, I'll be honest.
He finished wide receiver 8 last year. And I think there's a small drop off because I do think the ball gets spread around. I do think there's some validity in Caleb getting out of the pocket and really targeting Rome. I think Keenan Allen probably takes the biggest hit out of this group in terms of receiver production. But DJ's just proven time and time again that even if it's a 1 yard screen, he can make something happen. The talent alone and just getting competent quarterback play. No offense to Justin. He was never put in the best situation. We know that, but Caleb is in a great situation with tremendous weapons, and DJ is going to get a lot of opportunity to be open. I mean, like, you got to pick one of those guys to, like, show some extra attention to on every snap. And I think DJ is just the best receiver out of the 3 at this point. So I would lean towards him being a top 12 receiver this year.
I feel that he was right on the cusp for me. And like I do like DJ Moore this season, especially since they did just recommit to him, paid him the bag. I think the only problem I have in that is that, like, I know Caleb is this amazing man and this amazing player. I just don't know, like, what a rookie season looks like for him. Like, granted, I think he could throw for more yards than Justin Fields did last year. He finished as the wide receiver 8. So, like, hey, it's not hard to redo what he did last year.
By the way, don't think he's gonna throw for more yards Justin Fields did last year. There's no think unless his knee explodes and his arm falls off, he's gonna throw for more yards Justin Fields did last year.
And so I'm looking at the ADP, which I think was like a great thing that you brought up. And so I'm looking at the underdog ADP, and he's wide receiver 22. I'm gonna say a wide receiver that's going ahead of him, and tell me whether or not you'd rather have DJ Moore than Devonta Smith,
DJ Moore,
Brandon Ayuk,
DJ Moore,
Mike Evans,
no, Mike Evans,
Malik Nabers,
DJ Moore,
Cooper Kupp,
DJ Moore,
Chris Olave,
DJ Moore,
Jalen Waddle,
DJ Moore,
Deebo Samuel,
DJ Moore.
Okay, and so that, I think that's a good way to kind of do, like, judge that. Like, I would probably rather have DJ Moore over most of the people we sent on that list, with the exception of maybe like 2. And so, like, I think wide receiver 22 or whatever I just said. What did I say? Wide receiver 22 was kind of nuts. Like, I don't know. Like,
let me tell you something. If I'm getting DJ Moore as the 23rd receiver off the board, I'm winning my league. So
Devonta Smith over DJ Moore is crazy.
Nuts. Absolute nuts.
That's nuts. That's crazy. Both San Francisco wide receivers over DJ Moore, crazy. Come on.
Crazy. It's just not gonna happen, bro.
Yeah, that's
and
like
going back to Davante, like, they just got Saquon, bro. Like, Saquon and Jay are gonna run the ball. They're gonna get Saquon involved. AJ's
a
AJ.
lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah, AJ's AJ. They just traded for Dotson. Like,
Jalen Hurts is gonna get 8 rushing touchdowns. Like,
yeah, I mean,
like, there's
it's
not
just
enough to go around. Like,
no, there's one there. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. We all know how I feel about Jalen Hurts if you listen to this pod before, but he's only capable of supporting one wide receiver 1, in my opinion. There's a handful of quarterbacks who can support 2 of them, but he's the only one who can support 1, and that's going to be AJ. So,
yeah, I just think with the Eagles, like, and not to bash Devonta Smith, like, I love the talent, and like, if
He's
AJ
so
Brown
good.
was to ever go down or change teams or for some reason not be there, I can very well see him being a top 10 guy. But like, when you look at the Eagles as currently constructed, like, they paid Saquon the bag, they're going to use him. They get in the red zone, and Jalen Hurts is stealing 30% of the touchdowns. Like, you still have to spread it between AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith. They just traded for Jahan Dotson. Like, there's a lot to go around there. And like, I don't know that the Eagles, I know they have a new offensive coordinator. I don't know that they're going to be that efficient enough to feed everybody to pay off that ADP that Devonta Smith is being drafted at. And so, yeah, that leads me to my wide receiver 10. And it's Nico Collins. Now, he's one of my favorite wide receiver targets Hey, go check out my TikTok if you don't see. He's one of my favorite wide receiver targets. In ADP, he's going off the board as the wide receiver 12 in underdog leagues. In fantasy, like going off fantasy pros, he's going off as wide receiver
14.
yeah, 14. So like he's somewhere around that range. For me, I have him at 10. The Texans just recommitted to him 3 year, $72.5 million deal, 52 million guaranteed. For a guy that's really just had one big breakout year. He was below 500 yards in his first 2 years in the league and then just went crazy last year. And they rewarded that. They obviously are confident that he can reproduce. Until last season, he finishes a wide receiver 12 in total fantasy points. He only played 15 games. He was a wide receiver 7 in total fantasy points per game. And that's in a season where CJ Stroud was a rookie and threw 23 touchdowns. Now, I think we're all expecting CJ Stroud to throw somewhere between 28 to 35. So, like, that alone, that upside alone, kind of boost Nico Collins a bit for me. The Texans did keep Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, even though there was rumors he might go be head coach somewhere. I don't know how many more years they will keep him because if they have a prolific offense again, he is going to get more head coaching gigs. They were 15th.
CJ throwing for 40 of them things, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. Like they were 15th in pass attempts per game last season, which is like obviously middle of the pack, but they were 4th in yards per attempt. So like an extremely efficient offense. They also had the second highest depth of target in the entire NFL. So like they're not throwing a ton, they're throwing league average, but when they are throwing, they're throwing you like valuable targets as a fantasy wide receiver down the field. They're not throwing you a target for a screen. They're throwing you a CJ airing that shit out. So like that's the type of offenses we want. I know like a lot of people worry about target competition. They obviously bought in Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell is obviously an amazing wide receiver, but like throughout the preseason, Nico Collins has been their clear wide receiver 1. And I think that was what was missing last year, and he still finished as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Like the Texans last year didn't know who their wide receiver 1 was. They were rotating guys in and out. Nico was playing 70% of the snaps. Tank Dell was in and out. This year, in the preseason at least, he has a 93% route participation on plays with CJ Stroud compared to 86% and 64% for Diggs and Tank Dell. So like it's clear that they're making him their guy. He's their highest paid wide receiver. They've invested in him, and he was 24th amongst wide receivers in targets last year, 29th in target share. And so like I think the ceiling is raised exponentially for him. And if he was able to do all that while being 24th in targets, then imagine if he's 15th in targets. Like then that's where I see the upside coming in. And so yeah, that's why I have him as my wide receiver 10.
Wide receiver 10, I've got Mike Evans. I think Mike is getting drafted at the wide receiver 15 right now. In PPR, he finished wide receiver 7 last year. And I just don't have any reason to believe that's going to change. He's given me zero reason to believe throughout his whole career that his production's going to change. No matter who's been there throwing the ball away, throwing it, yeah, it doesn't matter. He's dropping 1,000. He's gonna be a red zone target. He's gonna catch deep touchdowns. Mike Evans is as capable of anybody on this list of dropping a 40-point fantasy game because he's just going to get 3 touchdowns randomly. The con of drafting Mike Evans is you get the quiet weeks too. But his big weeks are huge. And I just, Mike is somebody I will take in every league if it's possible. Because if he's going in that wide receiver 15 range, a lot of people will, that means you'll get the 15 to 18 guys. And if he's there, I'll take him. I think he's guaranteed a top 12 finish this year.
I was trying to look up wide receivers with the most fantasy points throughout the last 8 years just now while you were talking, and it wasn't coming up, but I feel like he's got to be up there, honestly.
He has to be up there. He just has to be.
He has to be up there.
Yeah, he 100% has to be. I'd say number 1 is like what? Tyreek probably.
Probably Tyreek. But even like in the last 8 years, I don't know. It's like, so I don't know how long he's been in the league. I didn't look it up, so I just figured 8. But like it's probably like Antonio Brown and people like that. Davante Adams. Yeah, people that have been
it might be Davante for real. At number 1.
It probably might be Davante. When you start talking again, I'll continue to look it up. But for
sure that. So let me go to my number 9 then.
Yeah. All
right, so my number 9, you type away. My number 9, going back to Philadelphia, is AJ Brown. I do think this is lower for some people, but this is purely based off the fact that when you have a weapon like Saquon, you find a way to get him involved. And Saquon is good in the run game, and he can catch the ball and be a phenomenal weapon out of the backfield. And I think anytime you add somebody with the talent of Saquon, you've got to consider their carries. Then you've got Jahan Dotson they just signed, and you've got Davante still. And like we alluded to, Hurts is going to get 8 rushing touchdowns. Like he's not really throwing a bunch of slants once they get in the red zone or quick outs all the time. So to me, AJ is right there, rightfully as wide receiver 1. There are just guys I like ahead of him. And I think that and me and Knox talked about this pre-episode, man. Like after the first 4 for me, I think 5 through 12 could like literally be anywhere. But that's the point of predicting and what we're trying to do. AJ's a freak. Hurts is unreal. And their connection's unreal. But I just can't see him getting fed the way he's been fed last year.
So I just cannot find it. And so we're just gonna go ahead and say Mike Evans is probably top 5.
For sure.
I was hyped to find it because I was gonna ask you to say the top 5, and it was gonna be a great segment. But clearly, it's not anywhere on the internet.
My turn. You talk.
Yeah. You try and find that for me, please. And so my number 9, AJ is a little bit higher for me. My number 9, this is like a clear tier break for me. And so I feel really confident about my wide receivers. 1 through 4 is a tier for me. And then 5, 6, and 7 tier for me. Honestly, 8 might be in a tier of its own. And then 9, 10, 11, 12 are all kind of a conglomerate for me. But my wide receiver 9 is Chris Olave. Now, he struggled with the concussion and an ankle injury. He missed about 1.5 games. Derek Carr sprained his AC joint after week 3. But in the games that they were both fully healthy, he averaged 9 targets, 6 catches, and 79 yards. Over a full season, that paces for 153 targets, 102 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Wait, why? You found it?
Last 10 years.
Oh, yes. Let's go.
Last 10 years. Who's got the most fantasy PPR points? You ready? Who's number 1?
Antonio Brown.
Davante Adams.
Okay. Yeah.
Who's number 2?
Tyreek Hill.
Mike Evans.
Let's go. Come on.
Who's number 3?
Antonio Brown.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Ooh, is Antonio Brown top 5?
No.
Okay, I can stop saying him. Thank you.
Who's number 4?
Julio Jones.
Tyreek Hill.
I was gonna say Tyreek.
Who's number 5? This one's gonna surprise you.
Wait, hold on. Let me really think. It's over how many years?
The last 10 years.
The last 10 years. Who's been cooking in fantasy over the last 10? Is it someone that still plays today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Still plays. Is he still the wide receiver of one of his team?
No, I wouldn't think so, but it'd be close.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Still plays today. Wide receiver 1. Is it Odell?
No.
Okay, don't tell me.
Odell was really relevant for 2 years.
Don't tell me. Wide receiver 1 is not wide receiver 1 of his team, but still plays today. Who?
And has been an elite receiver in the last 2 years in fantasy.
And has been. I need a list of teams. Like I just need to look at logos right now. Hold on. NFL logos. It's not the Bills. It's not the Texans. It's not the Broncos. It's not the Cowboys. It's not the.
You've already passed the team he's on.
I said it already?
The team he's on.
The Texans? It can't be none of them. Oh, unless it's Diggs? Stephon Diggs?
It's Diggs.
Yeah.
It's Diggs. Yep, it's Diggs. It's Diggs, then Julio, then Keenan, and then Brandon Cooks and Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper is a sleeper. Honestly, I should have said him, but yeah, Mike Evans is number 2 in fantasy points over the last 10 years. That's crazy.
Yep. If we were counting Travis Kelce, he would have been number 3. But
okay, good find. See, this is why. Thank you, my boy. Because clearly,
who's the highest scoring quarterback? Who's the highest scoring quarterback in the last 10 years?
It's not Mahomes. Josh Allen
for 10 years, bro.
10.
All the way back to 2014.
It's got to be a rusher because I feel like Russian quarterbacks put up a ton of points. Is it Lamar?
No, total points, bro, for 10 years. Lamar been in the league
but
for
like
6.
How many times? Okay,
7,
is it
probably.
An old head? Like
he's washed, but he's still in the league.
He's washed, but he's Russell Wilson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Russ, Tom
number
Brady.
one.
Yep. Russ, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. And then Mahomes.
Do running backs.
Running backs. So I don't know if there's any running backs on this list.
Hmm.
There's one. No, there's three. So who are the three?
Is it Todd Gurley?
No, one should be a given, bro. Who would be one?
Is it Christian McCaffrey?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Todd
Todd
Gurley
Gurley's
was
not on
nice
the
in
list.
fantasy, bro.
He was nice for like 3 years.
He was nice for like 3 years, yeah, but it was a good
10-year
3.
That doesn't make up for 7 years of not scoring fantasy points.
All right, that's fair.
He hadn't been in the league for like 5 years.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the league. He was only in the league for like 5 years.
All right, number 2.
Is he still in the league?
Yeah.
A running back still in Aaron Jones.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, I thought I was fucking.
No, you were.
Oh, he's still in the league.
He's washed as well.
Is he a team's RB1 or no?
I think their backfield situation's in flux right now. I would say he's splitting the backfield.
Backfield situation in flux. I'm going through these teams right now. Not the Texans, not the Bills, not the Broncos. Oh, Zeke.
Yep, Zeke.
Yeah.
And number 3?
Number 3, is he still in the league?
Yeah. He is his team's RB1.
Kamara.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Speaking of Saints, Chris Olave, wide receiver 9.
Let's go.
So I was saying he was when him and Derek Carr was playing, he was pacing for 1,300-yard season, 153 targets, 5 touchdowns. They're also bringing in Clint Kubiak to be their new offensive coordinator, who was with the 49ers. The Saints last season ranked bottom 10 in pre-snap motion, and the 49ers ranked top 3. So we should be seeing a more dynamic offense. He set career highs in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and fantasy points per game, was 12th in targets, 4th in deep targets, 6th in air yards. And he was still 3rd in unrealized air yards and only racked up 347 yak, which was only 23rd. So, like, if Clint Kubiak can scheme him into getting more looks with the ball in his hands and getting in space, he can not only get more yak, but like should just be a more efficient wide receiver. Derek Carr last season only had one of 2 outcomes. It was either chuck it down the field or check it down. He had the 8th most deep targets, and he had the 6th highest check down rate. So that brother was throwing no intermediate passes. It was either or throw it to Alvin Kamara. So it was one
or Juwan Johnson.
So it was one of those 2 outcomes. Hopefully we see a more dynamic offense. Ultimately, I have him here because at the very least, he's proven that, to me, his floor is 1,000-yard season. He's finished as the wide receiver 25 in his rookie year, the wide receiver 16 last year. So I don't think it's a crazy thing to say he goes from wide receiver 16 to wide receiver 9. So yeah, Chris Olave finishes as wide receiver 9 for me this year.
So wide receiver 8, I've got Drake London. I have a bit of a crush on Drake London. I think he is so good at football. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't had a quarterback since he got to the NFL. But Kirk has supported a wide receiver 1 for a long time. And I don't see that changing. And I don't think that there's enough target competition for him there to make it an issue. I'm a draft Mooney somewhere late just to see if he actually ends up being good for money. See if he's worth it for once. But I do think Drake London, I mean, he had a 31% air yard share last year. And that number's only going to grow. And hopefully Pitts gets his resurgence or finds some type of fantasy relevancy. But I just think Kirk is fully capable of it. And he's proven it time and time again that he can get at least one guy really good numbers. And I think Drake is dynamic and physical. And I think he's super talented. I've put a lot of stock into him. I've traded for him in 2 dynasty leagues this summer. So yeah, I've got Drake at my wide receiver 8.
Yeah. Drake London is not in here for me. So for me, and I'll talk about him later, but for me, my wide receiver 8 is Mr. Best Rookie of all time, Puka Nacua. I was
Didn't make my top
struggling.
12.
I was struggling with where to put him. And that's why I say, like, between 8 to 12, like, I could see him finishing below Chris Olave. I could see him finishing below Nico Collins. I could see him finishing, like, all of these guys interchanging, but I did
Can you
end
see
up
him
putting him at
finishing
8.
below Cooper Kupp?
I think there's a realm in which he does. Like, I don't think it's impossible by any means, but I think that he's probably solidified himself as wide receiver one there. I also think like Cooper Kupp's injury history doesn't really do the most, like, doesn't make me the most
Puka's hurt
excited.
right now.
He totally is. But like, I think when they were on the field last season, Puka had kind of taken over that wide receiver one role. Granted, I think he was getting their target share wasn't that far off, but the higher value targets were going to Puka Nacua, which is like what you look for in a Sean McVay offense. And so, yeah, he's wide receiver 8 for me. Obviously, coming off the best rookie wide receiver campaign we've ever seen. Finishes the wide receiver 4 in total fantasy points as a rookie. Crazy. Wide receiver 6 in fantasy points per game. On 332 plays that Matt Stafford played with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, he had a 30.2% target share compared to Kupp's 25.7. He had 829 receiving yards compared to Kupp's 526. So like I just said, like the target share isn't that crazy. Like 30% to 25, obviously it's a 5 percentage mark difference, but like I just think that the targets that he was getting was allowing him to get more, like, put up more fantasy points. As simple as that. And so like in 12 games of Cooper Kupp, he also averaged 15.6 fantasy points per game, which still would have been wide receiver 15. So like in a full season with Cooper Kupp, he would have been wide receiver 15 last season.
But Kupp was just never healthy though. Like even though he played, like he was still never at 100%. And it was obvious watching him play. So I'm just wondering if like a full season, like a full off season of Kupp being able to get back to his particular ideal health and what he's already like what he was doing in fantasy was historical. Like it was like
he put up a triple crown season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was nuts. So like it's just hard for me to believe that like that rookie year from Puka, as great as he was, like he just immediately becomes Stafford's favorite target. He doesn't have a podcast with Stafford. So
that's true. He doesn't, and I do think he joined the little breakfast things they be doing though. I think it's the 3 of them now, so he kind of infiltrated that. I'm not gonna lie. But I just think that like I think Cooper Kupp's going into his age 31 season, so like I said with Davante, 32 is usually where they fall off. Davante just put up a pretty good season at 31, so like it's not impossible for Cooper Kupp to put up this amazing season. I just think that they're going to put him in a role that is going to prioritize getting Puka the better fantasy football targets. Like I think Cooper Kupp is still going to have like 950, maybe even crack 2,000-yard receivers. I just think the higher value targets are going to Puka, just because like I think he's proven that he can be dynamic with them. And like granted, Cooper Kupp has gotten nothing but praise all off season. Like he's in the best shape of his life. He looks amazing. He's a training camp breakout. So like
which is crazy. How are you a training camp breakout? Is like
breakout is nuts. Yeah.
You just won Triple Crown 2 years ago.
Yeah, like come on, what are we talking about? But so like it's not out of the realm of possibility for Cooper Kupp to have an amazing season. I just think that both can happen. Like I think Cooper Kupp can have a wide receiver 14 season, and Puka can still finish as wide receiver 8. You know,
Stafford can support 2 of them.
I think he can. And like you don't really got much else in that receiving game. Like it's those 2 players. You're talking about Jordan Whittington and people like that. Well, I'm okay off that. I'm okay off the Jordan
Whittington's on my boom. He's on my booms.
Is he really?
At ADP 93,000, I've got him at my booms to finish at ADP 18,000.
But like I'm just not worried about him taking the ball out of their hands. I do like Kyron. I like Blake Corum. I like what they got going on there. But like I think it's clear Puka is the main guy in that offense. And I just think Sean McVay is an offensive mastermind, and he's gonna find ways to get the ball in his best receiver's hands. So yeah, that's why he ends up as wide receiver 8 for me. Now, this is a clear tier break. Everyone above here, I am supremely confident in. So
I'm not at my tier break yet.
Okay.
But my number 7 is Marvin Harrison Jr. And I want to say, first of all, I had him at like 11, and then we got some time to not record, and the camp reports are just nuts about like he's just everything they expected him to be and more. And He's got. You can say what you want about Kyler. I think Kyler's excellent. I think
I
he's
love Kyler.
very good.
This is a Kyler Murray podcast.
Yeah,
I love Kyler.
I think Kyler's absolutely phenomenal at playing football, and he can throw the ball. And I don't see a lot of target competition. And
You don't like
Kyler,
Michael Wilson? Oh, I'm a Michael Wilson guy.
anyways,
Greg Dortch, maybe.
I've got some Greg Dortch stock. But I just genuinely think that Marvin is that special. And if I can think that Puka can do it, I don't have a reason to think that Marvin Harrison Jr. can't. And if it wasn't for Puka, I may not have been in that mindset. Seriously. Like if Puka didn't do what he did last year, I might have been like, you know what? Yeah, top 15, top 18 finish. But I truly think that Kyler is good enough. And as long as Kyler is healthy, we'll see. By the way, Marvin is just like a locked in, like if you're going to bet on somebody to score a touchdown their first week, he's going to. Just like he's that vibe. But I just think Marv is going to be extremely special.
I feel that. I think for me, my problem with Marv is where you have to take him. Like when we look at ADP, and he's the highest drafted rookie wide receiver of all time in terms of fantasy.
This is rankings though, not ADPs.
I agree. I'm with you. Second just happens to be Malik Nabers. So we're just going crazy. The fantasy community just going all out on rookie wide receivers this year. But I think that's my problem in that, like, you have to take him at the 2-3 mid-second round. Wide receiver 9 ADP is like, like that's the thing with Puka is like he finishes wide receiver 6. You got him off the waiver, so like that's where that pays off.
This is Puka's fault. This is why his ADP looks
1,000%, 1,000%, a million percent.
Yeah, this is Puka's fault.
And so my wide receiver 7 is Garrett Wilson, who I adore this season. Now, this is 1,000% contingent on Aaron Rodgers not rupturing his Achilles on the first drive of the season. Like, if he plays a full season, I think that Garrett Wilson is one of the maybe 4 wide receivers that have real wide receiver 1 overall potential. Like, he's been the poster child for good wide receiver, horrible offense. Last year, he was 4th in targets, 7th in target share, 1st in routes run, 10th in air yards, 3rd in air yard share, 10th in deep targets, 9th in red zone targets. Like, they were getting him the ball, doing everything in their power. And like, if I tell you those stats in a vacuum, not telling you who the player is, you would probably think like, oh, that's a top 5 wide receiver guy. And in terms of expected fantasy points per game amongst wide receivers, he was wide receiver 6. And he finished as wide receiver 33 because he was playing with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, and Trevor Siemian. Now, without Aaron Rodgers, he had wide receiver 6 production. Like he should have been a top 10 guy, should have been damn near top 5 guy playing with shitters. So now we put the best thrower of the football that I've ever seen into this offense. 7 is the floor for me. Like, I think there's no way Aaron Rodgers plays a full season and he doesn't finish top 7.
What was the Aaron Rodgers debate that we
it was that Aaron was not
generational. Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, okay. Well, he is. So there you go. And I think like the target competition, when you look at that team, I'm gonna be honest, I don't trust Allen Lazard to be a good wide receiver. I don't think Mike Williams is doing enough to take away from Garrett Wilson. I don't know that Malachi Corley. I love Malachi Corley. I don't know that he's going to come in and just immediately establish himself as this wide receiver 2 target hog that takes targets away from Garrett Wilson.
That's just not like who Malachi is anyways. No, like he's a weapon. Like he's not coming out and running you like vibe. He's not coming out and running like 30-yard posts and like no. He's going to be underneath. They're going to use him very similar to how he was used in college. So, and of course Malachi's from my hometown, so I've got to be like, shouts Malachi.
Shout out to Malachi.
But like,
and so like,
what's that like, by the way? Because like a small town, like we get Malachi Corley and like that's the coolest thing ever. You live in New York.
But like there's not, so like I think about it as like people from my hometown. Like people from New York is like, okay, cool, everybody, because there's so many people in New York. But like I don't really know nobody from like Laurelton, Queens, Springfield Gardens, that like is up in the league. Like I don't
Yeah,
know. I
they're not
don't know
making it.
who it. No, we're not.
They're not
We're
making
not
it.
making it out of Laurelton to the NFL. Like that's just not happening.
Naj is still in Laurelton, in case you
Yeah,
are wondering.
no, I'm in Jamaica now. That means we're not in Laurelton no more. Like,
Jamaica.
yeah, Jamaica, Queens.
So y'all can't think of something like a little more
I
original.
didn't come up with it.
I don't know who did, but they dumbass. I don't like it.
But yeah, bro, wide receiver 7 for me, Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has proven that he can support a wide receiver 1 over the last decade. Jordy Nelson, Davante Adams, and now Garrett Wilson. I think I'm set with wide receiver 7. Wouldn't shock me if he ended up wide receiver 3, 2, or 1. So,
all right. So this is where the tier break happens. My wide receiver 6 is Justin Jefferson, and if you want to go back, I'm a Panthers fan. If you want to go back and look at DJ Moore's finishes week to week with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball, I think he finished as a top 10 receiver like 3 times in a week, like in the season. I think he finished below top 30 like 6 times. So just purely because of Sam Darnold, this has nothing to do with Justin Jefferson and who Jettas is. I think he is the second best wide receiver in football. So
Tyreek.
Yeah, Reek's just undeniable. The consistency of what he is and does, and you can't top the weapon that he is. He's the best weapon in football. So maybe you make an argument for like McCaffrey there, but I think that Jettas is in a place where, and especially like, do we know what's going on with Addison yet? Is he out?
I don't know. His situation is kind of weird. I don't think right now he's slated to miss any time.
Yeah.
Right now the answer is twofold. As he will likely be suspended for 3 games eventually, but it is highly unlikely that a suspension will be this year. So kind of like Alvin Kamara back when he got into his little violence
Rashee Rice
thing. Yeah, like I think the NFL waits until like the case itself is decided, which won't be until this summer, like mid-season, and so he won't get the suspension until next year.
Yeah, so I just don't know what the situation looks like. I don't trust Sam Darnold. I've seen it too many. I'm a Panthers fan, so I hate Sam Darnold. So yeah, I'm not moving with Sam Darnold, and therefore Justin Jefferson takes a hit and falls behind everybody else in front of him.
I'm interested to see who you have in front of him, because for me, my wide receiver 6 is AJ Brown. A little bit higher than you had him, but still in like that same range. I think last season the Eagles as a whole took a step back last year, both sides of the ball. They went from scoring 28.4 points per game in 2022 to 23.4 in 2023. So almost like a full touchdowns difference. They got rid of Brian Johnson, their offensive coordinator. They hired Chargers offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, which I think will end up revitalizing this offense. I think things had just kind of gotten stale. Like so obviously like the NFL for like over the last 5 years, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, like they're just moving to like a more motioned offense. And so like last season, the Eagles were dead last in pre-snap motion, 10.9%. The 31st ranked team was 12.4. So they were clearly in last place. They used motion overall on just 25.7% of their plays, which made them the only team in the NFL under the 33.6% mark. So like their offense was drastically different than every other offense in the NFL. I just think like while the rest of them were evolving, the Eagles weren't. And I think that was holding their fantasy players back. So I did like some research, and pre-snap motion gives wide receivers or anyone, it just gives a 55% fantasy point boost per route, and the Eagles weren't using it whatsoever. So like pre-snap motion equals good things for fantasy players, like that's simple as that. And the Eagles were held back because they weren't using it. And so on the other hand, the Chargers, where Kellen Moore previously was, used it on 25.9% of plays, 8th highest. So like I think that's a clear thing that we can say that the Eagles are going to implement more. The Eagles also passed on just 59% of plays, which was 23rd. And the Chargers passed on 65%, which was 6th. So like I think they're going to be airing it out even more. Even as Devonta Smith continues to emerge, I think AJ Brown's still the wide receiver one in this offense. He had a 30.1% target share, which was sixth amongst wide receivers, fourth in air yards, sixth in deep targets. He was also targeted 35.3% of the time versus man coverage, which was number one in the NFL amongst wide receivers. So like it shows that Jalen Hurts trusts him to win his matchup. If Jalen Hurts sees AJ Brown in man coverage, he's throwing it up. And so, like, I think that alone is something that gives me confidence that he's going to put up points. So if he was wide receiver 5 last year in PPR leagues and the Eagles offense was stuck in 2012, I think a revitalized offense should give him the opportunity to finish. I have my wide receiver 6. So even I'm expecting like not too crazy of a jump, not a jump at all, but like I think 6 is like kind of a decent floor for him because I think the opportunity will be there and I expect him to be a top 7 offense in the NFL.
Yeah. Like I said, man, Saquon just scares me what they're going to do with him. All right, wide receiver 5. Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I'm just all aboard the Garrett Wilson train, man.
Let's go. Choo choo.
Boo. Oh, no, Garrett Wilson is like even like I love watching like their players that get on Twitter and be like, I just don't know if I've ever seen a football player better than Garrett Wilson.
Braylon Allen dead said like I've never seen a player better than him ever, other than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I love that. That's the type of stuff I love to see as like a fantasy guy and waiting to see what happens with these players. And I honestly feel like and you touched on Garrett enough with what A-Rod can do with a wide receiver 1. Just didn't matter who it was. Just if you're on his roster and you were his first option, you're going to be a wide receiver 1. So
we've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah. So, but like you alluded to, it's if A-Rod's hurt, then it doesn't matter. But if we're assuming he's going to be fine and healthy and whatever, I think this could be his last year playing football. Maybe he plays one more year.
I think he plays one more.
Maybe it depends how the team is, right?
Yeah. If they're horrible, I think he's done.
Yeah. But Madden has them listed as a rebuilding team and Dynasty. I just don't agree with that. Anyways, so yeah, we've touched on Garrett enough, but yeah, he's my wide receiver 5.
Yeah, no way the Jets rebuilding. They probably have the best defense in the NFL currently. And right now their backup is Tyrod Taylor. Like they're trying to win. They are doing everything in their power to win. And so my wide receiver 5 ended up being Justin Jefferson. You obviously touched on him a little bit ago. This is about as far as I could drop him. And even this felt like I was doing this and I was like, damn.
That hurt, didn't it?
5? Like that's kind of low for him. I think there's obvious concerns playing without Kirk Cousins. JJ McCarthy's injured. Sam Darnold has never, ever in life proven to be a good quarterback.
Nope.
And you can look at examples like Garrett Wilson and Drake London and see like why good wide receivers on bad offense typically don't do great. Now there are examples of the like good wide receivers still producing a bad offenses, but like, and I think if anyone was to do it, Justin Jefferson is that kind of guy.
Probably.
He's only played 6 games without Kirk in his entire career, and he's put up 561 and 2. The averages are 9 targets, 6 receptions, 93 yards. He only went over 100 yards in 2 of those 6 games, and he was below 85 yards in the other 4. So like it hasn't been great without Captain Kirk. You feel me? Where I find some kind of hope is that last year, for the most part, he played with a pretty bad QB. Even when Nick Mullins is on the field after injury from weeks 14 to 18, Nick Mullins QB for all those games, he was a wide receiver 3 in total points, wide receiver 5 in fantasy points per game. And that's with him only playing 18% of the snaps in week 14 because he had like the rib injury or whatever. If you take out week 14, he was a wide receiver 4 from week 15 to 18, all with Nick Mullins. So like, I think that alone.
I'm confused. How he have six times without Kirk and he was ass, but he finished with wide receiver 3.
I don't know. Okay. So the wide receiver 14 to 18 thing. I mean, the wide receiver from weeks 14 to 18. I think those 4 games, and then there was like 1 in his rookie year, and then I want to say 1 last year. The other ones, though, the 2 100-yard season, the 2 100-yard games were both those 4, like in those 4 games, though. The first 2, he was pretty horrible because he was like a rookie and a second-year guy. But in these 4 that he played with Nick Mullins, he played pretty well.
Okay.
And the one that
Mathing for a second. My brain was hurting.
No. I feel you. In the one that he didn't have 100 yards in, I think he had a touchdown. So like it ended up equaling good fantasy football wide receiver. Hey, if he could do it with Nick Mullins, he could do it with Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's better than Nick Mullins. I'll be honest.
That's to be determined.
I would hope, I would hope that Sam Darnold is better than Nick Mullins.
No, Sam Darnold is bad.
Sam Darnold's horrible. I was hoping JJ won the job. You feel me? Like I was hoping JJ won the job. If JJ was the clear starter, I would feel good about this. I probably wouldn't raise him past 5, but I would feel good about 5.
I've got to find that DJ Moore stat now. Wait, I need you to, with the Sam Darnold thing. I need you to understand how bad it is.
So Jettis finishes as my wide receiver 5. While you look that up, my wide receiver 4 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that is a tier break for me, like 4-1. I feel confident in being the top 4 wide receivers. Amon-Ra should be on one of the better offenses in the entire NFL. Ben Johnson returned, even though he was talking about taking head coaching gigs elsewhere. There are a lot of mouths to feed in Detroit between Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, Sam Laporta, but I think they've made it clear that this offense does run through Amon-Ra St. Brown. Some people are worried about the possible emergence of Jameson Williams. I'm not necessarily worried about that. I don't know how I feel about Jameson Williams. I'm more out than I am in, to be honest. And so that doesn't really factor into this for me. When Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta were on the field last year, he saw a 32% target share. Sam Laporta was only 25. Now, maybe that goes up because he's no longer a rookie, but still, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is the number 1 target in this offense, and that's not even close. The Lions were top 10 in pass attempts, top 5 in passing yards and touchdowns, and they passed on 37.6% of their first downs, 3rd in the NFL. So this is an offense that wants to operate through the air. They're also an incredibly efficient team in the red zone. They scored a touchdown on 67% of their trips, which was 2nd in the NFL. And that's not like just scoring. Like they got a touchdown on damn near 70% of the times they were within the 20-yard line. Jared Goff also had the 6th most pass attempts inside the 10 and 5th most inside the 20. So like when they get down there, they're passing the ball. And yeah, he's the number 1 option on a team that I think could be the best offense in the NFL. And so that alone gives him like a top 4 floor for me as long as he can stay healthy.
I can't find this damn stat, bro.
Sam Darnold equals bad for fantasy wide receiver.
Yes, that's all we need to know. Sam Darnold is ass and equal bad. My number 4 is CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, so the crazy statistic that always comes out that nobody ever repeats is wide receiver 1. Just naturally, just how it goes. And the contract thing is weird. I don't know how long this is going to go on. No preseason reps is interesting. Jerry saying they don't miss him competitively is interesting.
I feel that way about him. I feel that way about Jamar, Brandon Ayuk. Like at some point, like you not practicing. The season is 2 weeks away. Like you haven't practiced the entire offseason. Yeah. You are like, what? Come on. What are we talking about? Like
we're smashing T. Higgins. So yeah, and I just think there are other things that come into play. Like, obviously Jamar was without Burrow for a lot of last year, and I think he's destined to get his top 3 finish. I think Amon-Ra is just in a light of consistency is just kind of inevitable at this point, what he does in the Reds. And he wasn't even carrying the ball last year like he was the year before that. I think he had like 10 carries last year, and he was still just elite. So, and those are 2 of the guys that I have ahead of him, obviously, at this point. So, yeah, I mean, and this isn't what CD did last year. What was he? 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns, 135. Yeah, he was nuts. He was out of this world. And with them still, I think, not having a true running game, it's interesting. I'm interested to see what they try to do with Zeke, and his preseason clips are hilarious. Like him just like running through that thing and just being winded, like the I'm talking about, like they have the arms out and he's got to run through it. Yeah. He just gets through there and he's like puts his hands on his knees and he just like bends over. I'm like, yeah, this is bad. But I think Pollard not living up to expectation last year was probably a big benefit to CD as a fantasy receiver, and them being willing to throw the ball. And trust me, Jerry Jones, you will miss him. He's elite. The CD is. Listen, I think if you told me you were up in the air if you wanted Jettas or CD, like like the rest of your, I could understand why you felt that way. That's how good I think CD is. But yeah, I just don't see, they just don't repeat as wide receiver one. It just doesn't happen. And I think he can take a little bit of a drop off. Maybe he's 1,500 yards and 8-9 touchdowns and 120 receptions. So, but yeah, wide receiver 4. I mean, that gap from 4 to 1, I don't think is huge at all this year.
No, I'm with you. And like I think like I hate that the owners do this. Like you're gonna pay them. Like the same with like I think CD between CD, Ayuk, and Jamar. Like I think CD has the most leverage in that. Like, hey, the Cowboys are obviously trying to compete here. Like Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. Dak Prescott's a free agent after this year. You want to go into the season in the NFC East in a division where the Eagles might be better than you already. The Commanders might be scrappy. Who knows who the Giants are going to be? Regardless, it's not an easy division. You want to go into the season with Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert and Zeke and Jake Ferguson and Rico Dowdle. Like, I don't know.
Brandon Cooks top 10 last 10 years. So
hey, yeah. But like, if I'm CD, I'm like, cool. Like, if that's what y'all want to start your season with, you go for it. Because I know you're going to end up paying me. Whereas like with Jamar, at least they have T. Higgins. I think they're gonna end up paying him too. And like Ayuk, I just think like he's in a tough situation. Like, all right, you don't really got that much leverage. They got Kittle, Shanahan, CMC, Debo. Like they're gonna be all right. You feel me?
Yeah,
so
they'll
like,
be fine.
They
can literally just tell Christian McCaffrey to go line up at receiver and
exactly.
just let like Elijah Mitchell, if he's even on that team anymore, run the ball and like they'll be just fine.
They'll be all right. Yeah. So
McCaffrey will finish as the wide receiver 5 in fantasy football.
And they'll be just fucking fine. So my wide receiver 3 ends up being Jamar Chase. I really wanted to make him the wide receiver 1. And if he had a contract, if he was practicing, if things weren't weird around that situation where like he's holding in, he's like doing private workouts with the coaches, but like not with the team, which is weird because like you're still at risk for injury in the private workout. So like, I don't necessarily know what's going on there. He also has 2 years left on his deal rather than like CD only having 1. They said that like he's made it clear he won't play if they don't get the deal, but it's also crazy to hold out with 2 years left. So like I don't know what's going on in that situation. And the Bengals historically start slow. So like combining their slow start with like a Jamar who might be trying to play himself back into football shape makes me feel like the first 3 weeks might be a little tough.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Did Jefferson get paid with 2 years left on his deal?
I don't remember.
I think so.
Were they drafted in the same year?
No. Year after him.
So he probably only had 1.
I thought Jefferson got extended 2 years ago. Or was it last year?
I think he got extended this summer, right?
I thought it was last year.
I thought he got extended this summer.
If so, then Jamar doesn't have a leg to stand on right now.
I might be totally wrong though. But I remember it being like a big thing. He came out with his whole campaign, and that didn't feel that long ago. Wait, I'm about to look at it right now. Justin
June
3rd.
Jefferson. Yeah, June 3rd.
Yeah, so this offseason, right?
Yeah, 4-year, 140 million.
Yeah, so and he was drafted a year before Jamar. So like holding out 2 years in advance is unprecedented shit.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, it might be. So
come on, brother. You gotta play the year. You just gotta play.
You have to go play.
You have to play. Like, what are we doing? And so I wanted to make him wide receiver 1. I think this is the year he finally goes crazy. Like everyone's waiting for that massive big breakout year from him. And I think this might be the year. Last season was pretty horrible for him. He dealt with nagging injuries. He still managed to play 16 games. Joe Burrow only played 10. In weeks 1 to 9, where Joe Burrow played, he was a wide receiver 7, and that's including a week 7 bye. He was wide receiver 8 in fantasy points per game. To put that into context, in those 8 weeks where they both had a bye, he had scored 1.6 fantasy points less than CeeDee Lamb, who was wide receiver 7 in total points through the first 9 weeks of the season. We know how the rest of CeeDee Lamb's season went after that. So like theoretically, Jamar was keeping pace with the wide receiver 1 overall. And then from weeks 10 to 18, he went on to be the wide receiver 25, and CeeDee Lamb went on to be the wide receiver 1. I think that alone shows the ceiling that he has. He was the wide receiver 4 in fantasy between weeks 5 and 10 when Joe Burrow was like pretty much back from the calf. And they did get a new offensive coordinator since Brian Callahan went to go coach Khalil's Titans. It's Dan Pitcher. He was previously their QB coach. So like they've already said that they don't plan on changing the offense up too much. So I think Jamar will still be able to, even though he's missing the majority of the training camp, like I don't think the offense is going to be too crazy for him to come back and get readjusted to. I don't really worry about T. Higgins. I know the conversation is like, who's really the wide receiver one? But when he and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins have all played, he's commanded a 27% target share and a 38% air yard share, which is compared
It's
to
not
T.
a debate.
23 and 35. So yeah, I think he's the wide receiver one in that offense. And they would just either they pay him or he just stops being insane and plays the game of football. I think he might be the wide receiver one. But since those are up in the air, he's my wide receiver 3.
Yeah, my wide receiver 2 is Jamar. So you touched on it. I'm good. We don't have to move any further on that. Yeah.
My wide receiver 2 is Tyreek Hill. No, my wide receiver 2 is CeeDee Lamb because I also subscribe to the fact that it's going to be hard to repeat on wide receiver 1, even though I think he could put up as good a season as he did last year. The contract thing is also weird. Not practicing, might not be in football shape. I don't know. No, he had a year. You've already touched on it. And that offense really does not. No one in that offense scares me outside of CeeDee Lamb. So like, he's going to get an insane amount of targets, an insane amount of production, and he's still only just 25 years old. And we've seen 50-year breakouts. He was a 4th-year breakout, but like we've seen those 4th-year breakouts continue to build on that in year 5. So I have him as my wide receiver 2. If he finished as wide receiver 1, I wouldn't be shocked. But yeah.
So we both got the same wide receiver 1 then. It's Tyreek Hill. Mr. Inevitable when it comes to fantasy football. And he was 1,700 yards and like 13 touchdowns last year or something. And
he was on pace for 2K at one point.
Yeah. So what Tyreek does, what he means to that Dolphins offense. I mean, he's the exact reason I will continue to fade Jalen Waddle in my drafts. So yeah. What are you supposed to say about Tyreek Hill besides the fact he's the best weapon in football? And he's got Mike McDaniel and then he's got Tua back there, who I think is but at least we've shown that he can support. We know he can support Tyreek Hill. So that's it.
Yeah. I think Tyreek Hill for me is wide receiver 1. You pretty much touched on it. He's just been a cheat code since he's came in the league, basically. He was wide receiver 2 last season. Every year that he's played 15 plus games, he's finished as a top 8 wide receiver in PPR leagues. Wide receiver 2, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 2. He played 12 games in 2019. He was wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 8. Like he's one of the safest picks in fantasy football. I think people worry about Jalen Waddle, but I also was like maybe Jalen Waddle takes a step. He played 14 games this season. I went back to 22 when he played all 17 and Tyreek played all 17. And Tyreek Hill was still 2nd in target share, 1st in target rate, and 4th in air yards. So like whether Jalen Waddle's on the field or not, Tyreek Hill's
doesn't matter.
It does not matter. So he's my wide receiver 1. I think his floor outside of injury is 1 or 2. Like I think regardless, he's 1 or 2. And so yeah, those are our top 12 wide receivers. Just to run it back for me, 1 is Tyreek Hill, 2 CeeDee Lamb, 3 Jamar Chase, 4 Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 Justin Jefferson, 6 AJ Brown, 7 Garrett Wilson, 8 Puka Nacua, 9 Chris Olave, 10 Nico Collins, 11 Davante Adams, and 12 DK Metcalf.
I was 1 Tyreek, 2 Jamar, 3 Amon-Ra, 4 CD, 5 Garrett Wilson, 6 Justin Jefferson, 7 Marvin Harrison Jr., 8 Drake London, 9 AJ Brown, 10 Mike Evans, 11 DJ Moore, and 12 Davante Adams.
Beautiful. And so that we can kind of run through our booms and busts. This is all based on ADP. We're not saying for the booms, we think all these guys are great players. So the busts, I'm not saying that these guys are going to be horrible NFL players. I'm just saying that where they're being drafted, there's probably guys I like ahead of them, and it's going to be tough to return on that cost. So we can start with booms. Give me a wide receiver boom for you.
I'll just go through the list of wide receiver booms here and run through it. So I'll give you their ADP as it stands when I say their names. George Pickens at ADP 27. Chris Godwin at ADP 34. Diontae Johnson at ADP 37. Mike Evans at ADP 15. DJ Moore ADP 23, just nuts. and Rashee Rice at ADP 35. The one that I really, really, really want to touch on is Diontae Johnson.
Yeah, Tokyo Panther stuff. We never get to hear this. Come on, talk to me.
Yeah, so we've made some improvements to our team. We're not going to be great, but Bryce supported a top 25 wide receiver last year, and it was Adam Thielen. I have no reason to believe that Diontae Johnson doesn't finish as a top 25 wide receiver. And when he's sitting there in the 6th, 7th rounds, I'm excited because I'm going to take him every time. Bryce is good. So no matter what anybody tries to tell me, I know Bryce Young is good at football. I have zero concerns. We can't block. We couldn't block. We had one legit blocker last year, our Taylor Moton. And then outside of that, it was just me basically standing there trying to keep a clean pocket for my boy. Yeah. But I refuse to believe Bryce Young is bad because that would it might be the worst trade in NFL history anyways.
That kid.
But yeah, and DJ Moore and
yep. Brian Burns.
We didn't take 3 first-rounders for Brian Burns and got nothing bad. Yep. Yeah. I love being a Panthers fan, bro. This shit sucks. But we've addressed some of the O-line stuff. We tried to address some weapons with Diontae, and we keep Thielen, and obviously Chenault's gone, who was actually a decently sized part of our offense, but then we draft Leggett. So one of those guys is destined to finish top 25, especially because we're going to be behind in a lot of games. And that's why I refuse to I refuse to think that that's not going to be the case. You all have heard me talk about Mike Evans and DJ Moore. Their ADPs for where they finished last year is just nuts to me. If Evans and DJ aren't finishing top 15, I'll be shocked. But like I said, Mike's at top 15. DJ Moore 23 is a steal. If he's there, take him. George Pickens, he's got all the preseason hype in the world. He's got Russell Wilson instead of Pickett, and then possibly Justin Fields. And then Chris Godwin just has dealt with injuries, unfortunately, but he's still a red zone target guy pretty often and gets a good target share. And I just think Chris Godwin's really good at football. And I think if he's at ADP 34, these are guys, all these guys on this list, I could see finishing top 25. Like Rashee Rice at 35 is nuts to me because he proved that he is the equal amount of target and weapon that Travis Kelce is to the Chiefs last year when they were both on the field. So I'll continue to believe that Rashee Rice will continue to go up. I'm not worried about Marquise Brown.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love pretty much everyone you said. I'm big on the Rashee Rice one. I think his ADP is so low because people are worried about the suspension or whatever. I don't think it's coming this year. So like you might as well take him. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I love me some.
He finished wide receiver 21 last year.
Exactly, as a rookie. Like he had the most postseason receptions of any rookie ever. Like in the games that mattered the most for the Chiefs last year, they made him a focal point of the offense. That's all you need to know. Like, and so I love the Rashee Rice pick. I love the Diontae Johnson pick. George Pickens, love it. I think like even last year, Russell Wilson showed like Cortland Sutton had some big weeks with Russell Wilson. Justin Fields supported the top 8 wide receiver. So like I'm not necessarily worried about that. Also, if they don't get Brandon Ayuk, the target competition is abysmal. They have Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson may or may not be good. Pat Freiermuth and then Najee and Jalen Warren, but like there's no proven guys outside of George Pickens. And so my boom is Malik Nabers. I am maybe one of the best I'm one of the biggest Malik Nabers fans you'll find.
Me too.
I think being on a great offense isn't necessarily essential to being like successful in fantasy football. Of course, it's preferred, right? Like we want good players on good offenses. But like when you ask people why you don't like Malik Nabers in fantasy, everyone's response is it's not player based. It's Daniel Jones and the Giants offense. That is why people are staying away from Malik Nabers. So I did some research last season. 4 of the top 12 wide receivers were on offenses outside of the top 17 in scoring. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Davante Adams, Mike Evans. Keenan, 10th in targets, 3rd in target share. DJ Moore, 14th in targets, 10th in target share. Davante, 2nd in targets, 2nd in target share. Mike Evans, 1st in deep targets, 1st in air yard share. So like it's clear that these guys are on bad offenses, but we're top 12 guys. were the number one guys in their offense getting the high value targets. They all were top 17 in targets, all average 8 targets a game. In their first preseason game together, Malik Nabers and Daniel Jones, he had 6 targets in a half. He had a 33% target share. Tyreek Hill led the NFL last year in target share, 33.7. It's very possible that Malik, this is obviously very small sample size, but like it is very possible Malik Nabers has a top 5 target share in the NFL year 1. He had a 46% air yard share in that half with Daniel Jones. Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill were top 3 in air yard share. None of them had over 45%. So like the Giants are showing us that we're going to
this
give
is like
this
an
guy
extremely small sample size.
Extremely small. A half, maybe like 3 drives.
It literally could be 3 drives.
3 drives. Literally 3 drives. All I'm saying is, hey, the utilization is elite. I'm banking on Daniel Jones being more Baker Mayfield than he is Zach Wilson. Like,
I can get behind that.
You know, like I think he's more Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown days than he is the Zach Wilson that has limited Garrett Wilson's fantasy.
So what's the highest you're going to draft Malik Nabers at if he's there at?
So right now he's going as wide receiver 17. I would not be shocked if he finishes wide receiver 12. I think he could be a wide receiver 1. I'm looking at the guys above him, right? So like, let me sort it by position. Okay, so right now he's going as wide receiver 17. Davante's ahead of him. I could see him finishing above Davante Adams. Cooper Kupp is ahead of him. I'd rather have Malik Nabers. Chris Olave. Okay. I have Chris Olave ranked higher. I could see him finishing higher than Chris Olave. Jalen Waddle. I could see him finishing higher than Jalen Waddle. Debo Samuel. I could see him finishing higher than him as well. I think he could be better than Drake London too. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he's being drafted at wide receiver 17 and you're drafting Marv at wide receiver 9. I don't think that their seasons are gonna look that much different. Like,
I have Marv at wide receiver 7, so I think they'll look that different. But
I don't think so. I think that he's gonna get all the high value targets. I think there's no one else that is gonna take targets away from him. And I think Brian Daboll is a good offensive minded head coach. Granted, he had a horrible last season, wasn't great, but like I think this season, Daniel Jones is gonna be more Baker Mayfield than he is Zach Wilson. So Malik Nabers for me is one of my booms.
Hey, who's the last relevant fantasy receiver to play for the Giants?
I guess Odell, right?
Yeah, that's pre-Daniel Jones, right?
Yeah, it was. That
was Eli Manning.
It was, but who's the last talented wide receiver the Giants had in the Daniel Jones era?
Kadarius Toney.
Okay, he's horrible. So
he's talented.
Matter. He's a running back, brother.
He can adjust his gloves and catch the ball.
Yeah, he can't even catch. And then my last boom, I only came with 2. Justice was way more prepared than me. My last boom was Christian Watson. I'm a big Christian Watson guy. I've always been a Christian Watson guy. I think he's the wide receiver on the Packers with the most alpha potential. I also think he offers the most upside in fantasy. He's like 6'4", run a 4.3, second round pick. I Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed. I like Dontavion Wicks. Those are all cool guys. I think Christian Watson is more talented than all of them. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 40 right now. I think that's low, right? Like every other, I think we expect the Packers to be a top 10 passing offense with Mike LaFleur. And is that his name? Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is his name. There we go. Mike. Nope. Matt LaFleur.
Sorry, I said Brock Powers earlier. So
yeah,
that's like a comic book.
So I think we expect him to be a top 10 passing offense. If you look at all the top 10 passing offenses from last season, at least, all of their wide receiver 1s are going way before wide receiver 40. The Dolphins, the Lions, the Cowboys, the Niners, the Vikings, the Chiefs. Even Xavier Worthy going ahead of Christian Watson. Rashee Rice going ahead of Christian Watson. The Texans, they got 3 wide receivers all going ahead of Christian Watson. The Bills, the Jags have a receiver going ahead of Christian Watson. The Rams have 2 wide receivers going. Christian Kirk.
Oh, okay.
I forgot that they got him, but yes, Christian Kirk. He was like in and out of the game last season, but Christian Kirk is going ahead he's the wide receiver 32 in ADP. So, like, I'd rather have Christian Watson. You know, he's the cheapest possible wide receiver 1 you can get.
I wouldn't, by the way. I'd rather have Christian Kirk.
Over Christian Watson?
Yeah, going into
Oh,
this
okay.
season for fantasy
Okay.
purposes.
I mean, I feel it. For me, like I was saying, he was the Packers wide receiver one when he was on the field, 5 to 13, weeks 5 to 13 last season. He led the team in target share, air yard share, end zone targets, first read share. Like, I think he's proven he has 14 touchdowns over 23 games. That's the most in his class. Keep in mind, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Drake London, all in his class. They also haven't played with great quarterbacks, so I get it. I'm not saying he's better than any of those guys, but he
Okay,
has
just
proven to
making sure
be
here.
he has proven to be a good fantasy wide receiver. He averaged a touchdown every 5.6 catches, which is insane. He was ninth in end zone targets amongst wide receivers, and he only played 9 games. And so, like, I think if I'm projecting the Packers to be a top 10 passing offense, there's no way, and I'm projecting Christian Watson to be their wide receiver one, there's no way he finishes at wide receiver 40. I know the injury risk is the problem there. The hamstring has been made of goo, but like every player's injury prone until they're not. So I'm gonna say that this is the season he's done work to kind of try and correct that. If he can stay fully healthy, I think he smashes a wide receiver 40 ADP. And so yeah, that's one of my booms.
Onto the bust. I like Christian Watson. We talked about that before the pod. I'm banging Christian Watson. I just pause. I just yeah, that's nuts.
Oh,
My bad.
that's crazy.
Sorry.
A lot of words you could have.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I'm tapping worse. I'm hitting that draft button if Christian Watson rolls around. But I still think I would take Kirk just based off what he did when he was wide receiver one in Jacksonville. To the bust. Like we said, it's purely based off ADP. This does not mean they're going to be ass. I've got Nico Collins at ADP 14.
No.
He finished wide receiver 18 last year, right? In PPR.
I'll tell you right now, I got it pulled up. He finished last season in PPR wide receiver. I have 12 right here. Oh, in like average or total?
Average.
In average, he was.
Or it might be total. I can't remember.
In average, he was 7. In total, he was 12.
I don't know where 18 came from. That's what I have written down in my notes. But good for him. Anyways, ADP at 14. I'm just fading all Texans receivers at this point. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And I understand the payday. I understand what's happened in preseason. That's just such small sample size. It could be the matchup on those particular nights. Diggs is going to have big games. Tank is going to have big games. And I think when you're looking at like spending your draft spots in that wide receiver 14, like the first 2 rounds, for the most part, you want like certain, like a for sure thing, like week to week almost. And I'm not sure Nico will be that. My next one is Jalen Waddle at ADP of 20. Last year he finished wide receiver 29. And I think that's probably about where he finishes this year. I think he finishes in that 28 to 32 range, 25 to 32 range maybe. My next one, Amari Cooper at wide receiver 14. He was wide receiver 17 last year. I just think I'm over Deshaun Watson and hoping that he's going to be good. And we know how great a receiver Amari Cooper is, but health is a thing sometimes. So you always have to worry about that. Like I said, I'm fading all Texas receivers. Stephon Diggs at ADP of 19. There's a lot of guys going past him I would take before him. I would take Rashee Rice before him. I would take George Pickens before him, and I will take Diontae Johnson before him. Just purely because I don't know. I just don't know what Houston looks like. And I could look back and regret this in 6 months when Diggs and Nico both finish top 15 and it sucks and I lose, but it is what it is. And
no,
then
I don't think
last
that's crazy. Like when you look at underdog ADP, I'm looking at it now. Like Nico Collins is wide receiver 12, Diggs is wide receiver 23, and Tank Dell's wide receiver 24. Like,
yeah,
there's
it's
no
all
way
right there,
that they're gonna produce 3 top 25 wide receivers.
No, it's
Somebody
just not
is
possible.
busting here. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And busting doesn't mean they didn't have good seasons. Like that's what it's hard to see. Like they can be good for their team and not be great fantasy players. Like I think they're going to be a high powered, like really good offense, and those 3 guys might be the best receiving core in the league. I don't know. Tough to say. tough to say because Philly just did the Jahan Dotson thing.
Hey, Seattle.
So, anyways, yeah, Carolina. And then my last one is Puka, who is at ADP of 8, finished wide receiver 5 last year. I just don't see, to me, a realm that he finishes top 12, so I'm not going to spend a first round pick on him. And that's what makes you a bust to me. He can be wide receiver 13. If I'm spending a first round pick on you and you finish wide receiver 12, you're a bust at that point to me. Because that means I've probably drafted you as one of the top 8 wide receivers, assuming that you see C-Mac, Brees, and Bijan come off the board, right? So, that's like I said, you've got to put all of this into like reality of Puka possibly not being their wide receiver 1. And we touched on it. But like I said, if I'm spending first round draft picks on you, I need you to be there for certain you're going to produce no matter what, unless you get injured, and he's already hurt. So we'll see what it looks like. Obviously, if he's healthy and Kupp is a shell of himself, then yeah, Puka's set up to be, because Stafford just does that. But yeah, right now I'm fading Puka in all my drafts. Like in our redraft league, that's probably the most important league to me. I've got the 11th pick. I think Puka will be there, and I won't take him. So I'll probably look for like AJ Brown, Gibbs if he's there, and then on the turn this will be the first year in a long time I've thought about going running back to start, because there's so much depth at receiver. I literally might go like Gibbs, Saquon at the turn and just push. But yeah,
you could get Malik Nabers in the third. I like you
can get a lot of people in the third. If I'm gonna get mother freaking Mike Evans in the third, or I'm gonna get DJ
Moore,
yeah. If I get DJ Moore in the third, if I get Diontae Johnson in the 5th or 6th, like I'm fine. I think running back might be the move for background to first round picks this year.
So my bust, I want to make it clear, I do not think that these are bad NFL players. I just think that it's going to be very tough for them to return on their cost. Number 1 for me is Drake London. This doesn't mean that I'm not a Drake London fan. He's been in the NFL he's been in the NFL for 2 years. He's played 15 and 16 games. He's never gone over 1,000 yards. I understand that he had a bad QB. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave also had bad QBs. They both went over 1,000 yards.
And a dumb offense, bro. You need to put some respect on Drake London.
Again, Arthur Smith sucks.
You pissed me off, bro.
I understand, but to not go over 1,000 yards, I don't know. That's kind of tough. He's finished as the wide receiver 31 and 37 in PPR leagues in 2 years in the NFL. Now he's being drafted as the wide receiver 10. That you finished as 31 and 37, and I have to take you at 10 based on what? A 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off a torn Achilles, and that they've played no games together. Neither of them played in the preseason. The chemistry might be off. That's a little bit, but like the torn Achilles thing, I'm going to say that matters for Kirk Cousins. They have Kyle Pitts. They invested the 8th pick in Bijan Robinson. They have a new offensive coordinator who's never called plays before, a new head coach who's a defensive-minded guy. I just feel like you're jumping through a lot of hoops, projecting a lot of things to be like Drake London this year, based on all that, is going to be top 10. I think he's priced at his ceiling. Like, if I have to take Drake London's not finishing higher than 10. So if I'm taking him at 10,
bro, I've got him finishing higher than 10.
You do, yes. I don't see a realm that Drake London finishes higher than 10. So if you're asking me to take him at 10, I can't justify that for a guy that's never even been top 24 to just jump into 10.
If you're listening to this, put a timestamp on this. And if you're watching and if this somehow made it to TikTok, you need to save it. Drake London's going to go in the first 3 weeks of the season. We'll have 3 touchdowns and we'll have probably 270 to 315 yards. Okay. I just want you all to know that. Like week one, he's giving you 130 yards and two TDs.
Okay. Believe Justice. I'm saying there's no chance in hell.
Do you know how good Drake London is?
He can't be that good if he ain't got 1,000 yards, my brother. I'm sorry.
You're not going to use that.
Get a K? Can't get a K? I know you playing with Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder, but hey, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave was making a shake.
What? There's two completely different like state of team and roster and
bad offense, good wide receiver. They to not get 1,000 yards that's big. Like
they were just handing it to Cordarrelle Patterson. What do you want him to do about that?
But if I'm talking about fantasy and I have to take you at 10 and you've never even finished at 22, 28, 29, that's crazy.
But if he finishes 14, 10 is a second round receiver. If he finishes at 14, he's a second round receiver. If you finish at 14
and I take you at 10, that's not
no returning. 10 as a receiver. He's the ADP 10 receiver.
Yes, he's the 10th.
Right, so he's going in the second round. Yes. So if he finishes 14, he's still a second round receiver.
But if I have to take you at 10 and I can take guys below you that I like better, and I have to take you at your ceiling when I can take a guy like, if I can take Nabers at 17, I would rather have him at 17 or even if I'm not talking wide receiver, right? You have to take him on underdog at least. He's the 15th player off the board. In that round, I would rather take Gibbs. I'd rather take Devon Achane. I might rather take Saquon. Based on my rankings, I'd rather take Nico Collins.
I've agreed with everything so far besides Nico. But.
And so, like, if I have to take you there, when I could take Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd rather take Kyren Williams.
This
all
is pure
those guys
receiver
above
ADP,
him,
though, bro. I'm not talking about running backs.
But it's based on ADP. Like, okay, even both of them. There's receivers below him I'd rather take, and there's just pure players below him I'd rather take.
So you'd rather take Mike Evans, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd rather take Mike Evans. Okay. I'd rather take DK over Drake London.
Okay, I disagree with that.
I'd rather take DJ Moore over Drake London.
You'd rather take Olave.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying that that's not in the realm of possibilities. I just watched Drake. I love Drake London, and I love Bijan Robinson, and I love Kyle Pitts. So, like, this is weird because I'm a Panthers fan and they're in our division, but like I really like watching the Falcons play just for those guys I like. I just know how good at football Drake London is. And I know that
I'm not debating that he's not good at football.
I know that if Kirk Cousins is 90% of what he was, if Kirk Cousins is 85% of what he was in Minnesota and what he did for Justin Jefferson, I'm going to assume that Drake London can give me something close in the realms of 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns. Like,
I would just say the way I feel about it is I don't think Drake London is a bad player. I'm talking about the 1,000 yards. I think he's a good wide receiver. I'm just not comfortable taking him at 10 when he's playing for a new head coach and a 36-year-old coming off a torn Achilles, and the guy calling plays has never called plays before. We don't know what that offense is going to look like. So for me to just assume that he's going to be top 10
generational
doesn't feel right for me.
That offense will be generational.
Yeah, I'm
offense will feed families.
That it won't be. And then my second bust, another guy that you have ranked high, is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that Marv is a generational wide receiver. We love using that word. I think Marv is a generational wide receiver. The same way that you have to take Drake London at 10, you have to take Marv at 9.
I actually don't know that that generational is the word I would use for Marv.
What would you use?
Just like great, like he'll be great,
elite,
like a generation, like a receiver generational to me is like your Calvin Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Okay, scrap generational, right? I think in his career he will be a great wide receiver. I think he'll be a perennial top 12 guy, and in terms of fantasy, in terms of real NFL football, he might be perennial top 5, top 3, whatever it may be. Yeah. I think if I have to draft him at wide receiver 9, the highest ADP of any rookie wide receiver ever, I'm out. I just think there's a lot that can go wrong for me to have to take you as my wide receiver 1. To get Marv,
the only thing stopping him from being wide receiver 1 is Kyler getting hurt.
To get Marv, you really do have to take him as your wide receiver 1, and I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. Last season, Puka was the wide receiver 6, and that's off the best rookie receiver season we've seen. I'm not even 1,000% sure the Cardinals offense will be good. They play in a very tough division. So I'm already jumping through hoops to say this Cardinals offense is going to put up a lot of points. Maybe they don't put up a lot of points. I've made the argument for Malik Nabers. I don't think the Giants are putting up a lot of points. I think Malik Nabers is still going to be great. So you can say that for Marvin.
Nabers will finish above Marv.
No, but you can take Marv you can take Malik Nabers at 17.
No, I'm just asking. Whoa, well, relax.
Oh, you're right. My fault. My bad.
Relax, brother.
My fault.
Relax, brother. Come on. deep ball.
I'm just saying, over the past 6 years, top 10 fantasy wide receivers have averaged 148 targets, 101 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 9.6 touchdowns. I
Wait, what's
don't
the
know
target?
that 148 targets, 101 receptions, 1,300 yards, and 9.6 touchdowns. I don't know that. Like, if you project a 1,200-yard, 6-touchdown season for Marvin Harrison, which is amazing as a rookie, he's not giving you. That's not the wide receiver 9. So,
But
like,
if he gives you like 1,400 and like 12 touchdowns,
but like that's what Puka did. Like, I don't in an amazing offense with Matt Stafford, and like I like Kyler. I don't know that the Cardinals offense is going to be as good as the Rams offense was last year. I think Marv is a better talent than Puka, obviously. But like, I just think that it's a lot. I didn't have to take Puka at 9.
okay,
Like,
I would argue that there's almost less that has to go right than that has to go wrong for Marv. Like like Marv is gonna be like their target hog immediately.
mm-hmm. If I
And
tell you Marvin Harrison, his rookie season, it's 6 months from now. Marvin Harrison Jr. puts up 1,300, 5 touchdowns, and 100 receptions. That's damn good. That's not wide receiver 9.
there's a 0% chance he finishes with only 5 touchdowns.
Okay, but then 1,100 and 8 or 9. That's still not wide receiver 9.
There's a 0% chance he finishes with only 1,100. Unless Kyler gets hurt, it won't matter. If Kyler's healthy, he'll be a top 10 receiver.
So do we think he's just going to automatically come in the league and just be elite? Like, there's no
Yes.
rookie learning curve.
Yeah.
There's none of that.
No.
I think
From everything we've heard at camp, it's not even like debatable.
But he's playing against the Cardinals defense.
Well, they do the scrimmages.
They do one joint practice.
He cooked
for the majority. Who was the joint practice against?
And he cooked. I don't know. I have to go look.
But like, he's going against the Cardinals cornerback 1. I don't know who that is. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Maybe I don't know Bull enough. Maybe it's some elite guy. Know who the Cardinals cornerback 1 is. But for the majority of camp, I don't think that it's that tough to look good against the Cardinals defense. Now, this is making me sound like a Marvin Harrison Jr. hater, and I promise I'm not. I just think
I think it was the Vikings.
Who's their cornerback?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they have a bad defense too. Like, I just think at where you have to take him, it's tough for me to justify that as a rookie. That's all I'm saying. Maybe he finishes as the wide receiver 14, 15. I think that's well within the outcomes. But like, if I take him at
Colts.
9, I think they have a decent wide receiver. I think they have a decent cornerback.
They've got a pretty good defense in general, yeah.
I think they have Kenny Moore. I think that's their cornerback 1. I think he's decent. I don't think he's top 10 or nothing, but like, hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. cooking Kenny Moore. That's elite volume right there. That's a good. It's a good
Somebody
look.
else too. How many joint practices do they have, bro? This looks like the Titans.
I think they might do 2, 1 or 2 per team or something like that. Because the Seahawks have done the Titans, and I think the Seahawks only did the Titans actually. So I don't know how much they do. I think the Jets did one with the. I know the Bears did one with the Bengals. So I think each team might do 1, maybe 2. But yeah, I just think bottom line, I think it's a little bit rich to be having to take him at wide receiver 9. But I can take guys below him that have played in the NFL that
it was like, Colts.
I know will put up wide receiver top 15 wide receiver seasons. And so yeah.
Every clip is him just absolutely cooking Kenny Moore, bro.
I get it. But like, preseason clips can be deceiving, brother. I don't want to sound like a Marvin Harrison Jr. hater. I hope that he proves me wrong and finishes top 10 and has an amazing season, because I think he's an amazing receiver. I just think in fantasy drafts, I won't be getting him.
If I don't go RB, like if he's there at 11, I'll probably take him.
I don't know that I would. I don't know what running backs are there. It's probably the same guys that are there for Drake London, because he's wide receiver 10. So
yeah, I mean, you see like Gibbs, who I'll be hard pressed to not take. Gibbs, Kyron,
Achane.
Yeah, Achane. I'm actually like a little worried about Achane just because Mostert and Jalen Wright.
He had a crazy efficient season. He also like dealt with injury. He's a small back. Like, It is tough. Like the landscape of running back changes so crazy year over year.
Yeah.
Like Kyron Williams was nobody last year, and now he's
Yeah.
a second round pick. Like there were the days of David Johnson was crazy elite. Austin Eckler was elite for 7 years, and now
Yeah.
he's nothing. Like
Who was we had one other random back who's really good who just was irrelevant the next year. Was it Cam Akers?
Cam Akers, I want to say it was Cam, but that was that Rams offense. Kyron Williams, is he gonna cook? Like
Yeah, they
running
took
backs, just Damian Pierce was crazy good, and then fell off a cliff. Javonte Williams was crazy nice, got injured, and there were rumors about him not making the team. Obviously, he's gonna make the team, but like the running back landscape just changes so crazy year over year. So it's tough to kind of predict, but I think Achane will be fine. I think Kyron will be fine. I think Gibbs will be fine. I think Bijan is obviously nice. Like all those first round, early second round running backs, I do kind of like. And then I think when you get to like round 3, 4, 5, you slam receiver. Because like you're looking at guys like Derrick Henry, who I don't like. You're looking at guys like Travis.
Oh, Derrick Henry's still gonna finish top 12.
Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, James Cook. Like I'm out on all of those guys.
I'm through the roof on ETN this year.
I don't love ETN. Like I would rather take DK Metcalf over Travis Etienne in the third. You know, like
I wouldn't, but I also really like DeAndre Swift this year.
I think he'll be fine. The Bears has got a lot to go around.
There's just a history with rookie quarterbacks and what happens with those running backs. And yeah, I think it's like for like first round rookie quarterbacks, 48% of the time or something like that, their running back finishes top 12.
Yeah, because I mean, it's easy, and DeAndre Swift is like a pass catching back, so it's easy. You saw on that preseason screen, he just dumped it off. He ran for 45 yards. Like
yeah.
So I think Swift should have a decent. He had a good season last year, and that was on the Eagles. So, but yeah, those are our top 12 wide receivers, booms and busts. So for fantasy football 2024, Justice is gonna get us killed. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the fantasy football. Oh, I thought you were throwing up real gang sign. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, what is this guy throwing?
I'm running it up.
Oh, there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Run It Up podcast. Make sure you subscribe. I didn't even say that in the beginning of the episode. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast everywhere that they are. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. Everything will be in the description. On Twitter, we're at Run It Up Pod. On Twitter, I'm at Najee Adams _ Justice is at JReed _ Khalil's at below 44. So make sure you tap in with us. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure you have a litty day, a litty life, a litty night. Whoa, this was a bad outro. That's not what it is. I hope you guys have a litty day, a litty night, a litty life. And just like we do in every episode of this podcast, make sure y'all go run it up.